Embarking on a playthrough of Dragon's Dogma is no small undertaking. The game doesn't hold your hand and expects you to figure things out for yourself. It can feel punishing, unfair, and incredibly confusing when you first start playing. Tips in this video will make your life much easier if you're looking to take your gameplay to the next level. Keep your eye out for the bonus tip as well, which is perhaps the most important one. So, without any further ado, here are 20 tips I wish I knew before I started playing Dragon's Dogma in 2024. Climbing monsters, shanking and stabbing them until they topple over, leaving them vulnerable to your party's onslaught of attacks is one of the coolest and most exciting aspects of combat mechanics in the game. However, one issue you will absolutely run into often when you first start playing is getting knocked off their backs continuously. How do we overcome this issue? Why, with the correct gear, augment and curatives, of course. Utilize curatives to keep your stamina topped off during a mount, and be mindful that you pick relevant augments to support you here. Keep a close eye on monster behavior, and learning what their animations are signaling will really help. For example, ogres have a very specific arm movement in which they throw their arms forwards then back before they throw themselves backwards onto the ground, subsequently crushing you. This is your cue to dismount. It is also important to be aware of the power daggers offer us in this area. They're a rapid attack speed weapon, and you have access to a skill called Scarlet Kiss, which later upgrades to one called 100 Kisses, and unlike other skills, you still have access to this when you mount monsters. This absolutely mutilates monsters, and I would fully recommend starting with a Strider class for this reason alone. I'm a little bit biased there though, folks. Do not sleep on your initial character creation. Physical attributes such as the height and weight of your character actually have a substantial impact on areas of your gameplay. Smaller characters have smaller hitboxes but have a really reduced carry capacity. Smaller characters can also get into areas that larger Arisens cannot, and larger characters can withstand wind effects more than smaller ones. If you're smaller in stature, you're faster and more nimble, meaning you're able to recover stamina quicker and move around faster. But the caveat to this is you have less reach and stability, meaning you'll get staggered easier in combat. If this is already sounding quite overwhelming, don't worry. The game provides a preset of body types which do a great job at matching play styles. So consider what type of character you're likely to play and use your intuition to decide. If you're going to be playing a tanky, in-your-face fighter class, it probably makes more sense to make a big, brawny, bruiser type character as opposed to a tiny, dainty, skinny one. The earliest point in the game where you can change your vocation is on Bitter Black Isle. You can head here as soon as you have the opportunity to speak to the girl in the starting village on the pier. If you're eager to try a hybrid vocation in the early game, this is the quickest and most efficient way to do so. All vocations have 9 ranks, and once leveled, it is recommended that you move on to another vocation. Do not sleep on augments. An increasing variety of augments can be purchased as you level each vocation. These level ups can be achieved via inns and can be weaved together to create incredibly powerful combinations. These will enhance your character significantly. Take the time to read the tooltips and consider how this would impact your gameplay. Augments are not exclusive to each vocation. For example, a fighter unlocks Sinew at level 5, and this can then be used on any other vocation. This point completely escaped me when I first started playing the game. In terms of skill unlocks, don't worry about what you think might be the cookie cutter meta approach to building each vocation. Sure, they all have their optimal setups, but believe me, it is so much more rewarding to come up with your own playstyle that actually feels enjoyable to you to play. Upon reaching the main city of Grand Sorin, make sure you purchase weapons and armor from the Blacksmith to markedly improve your damage and defenses. This is also where you can enhance and upgrade your gear, and you should revisit here regularly and upgrade your own and your party's equipment to ensure that you optimize your efficiency. Whilst on the topic of weapons, when you start your adventure, you'll begin with rusted weapons, regardless of the vocation that you choose. Do not be fooled by their seemingly downtrodden nature. Once you have the resources to upgrade these weapons to 3 stars, these weapons become absolutely lethal and can inflict torpor and poison debilitations. Torpor is actually one of the most useful debilitations in the game and gives your party a distinct advantage in terms of speed by slowing your enemies down quite considerably. I missed this the first time I played through DD1, so make sure you don't. They are viable throughout the entire game. When inflicted with torpor, the character's animations, including movement, skill charging, spell casting, and attacks, are all slowed to a 50% of its normal speed. Even falling is slowed. Torpor can be inflicted by the spell Lassitude, the assassin skill Blunting Arrow, and the Jewel of Time, and by rusted weapons enhanced to 3 stars or higher. It can even be self-inflicted by consuming Rotten Ambrose, but I wouldn't recommend that. Whilst on the topic of debilitating enemies, identifying enemy weaknesses makes combat much easier. Every enemy in the game has a specific elemental vulnerability, and it really does pay off to exploit these at every opportunity. An example here for the early game would be some goblins, undead, cyclopses, and saurians, those lizard-like creatures, creatures are all weak to fire. Some Saurians are also weak to holy damage, so it would perhaps be beneficial to set your party up with a focus around fire and holy, or maybe another element. If you really want to get sweaty with this, check out the Dragon's Dogma fandom page. There is a full comprehensive breakdown of every enemy in the game and how their resistances and defenses shape up. A nice rule of thumb is to set your party composition up with 2 elements as a focus. You can become more nuanced as the game progresses, as you get more comfortable with understanding these mechanics, but this is a nice starting point. To gain access to this party-wide elemental capacity, we need to engage with another integral system of the game: the pawn system. This system gives you the chance to create your main pawn. This is a customizable companion that accompanies you throughout the game. Consider what will complement your Vocations playstyle. If you're ranged, maybe consider taking a frontliner like a fighter and build them in a way that encourages them to be a tank of sorts. If you're a melee character, consider a ranged character to apply damage or support from afar. Additionally, you'll learn how to hire 2 other pawns that are created by other players. More on that later. These 2 pawns are different in that they are much more easily interchangeable and less customizable than your main companion. My advice here would be to ensure that you have 1 mage in your party when you're starting out. Mages are a support class of the game, and having one of these in your group will make your opening hours and time with the game much more forgiving to play. Ensure that you recruit one that possesses the Anodyne skill. This heal is absolutely invaluable as you learn the ropes of combat. Also try to grab one that has Halidom, as this removes debilitations which you may find yourself stricken with. And here is where you also gain your elemental buffs as previously outlined. You can pick up Holy Boon and Fire Boon, for example, which will ensure that your party is periodically buffed with either spell. During a playthrough as a Strider, I've opted for this style of mage and a sorcerer with offensive skills of a similar nature. Paired with a fighter, I've created a really well-rounded composition that tackles most encounters comfortably in the early game. You can acquire these pawns from a place called the Rift. This serves as a multiplayer feature in the game. Other players, including yourself, can enlist their own main pawns here, making them accessible for other players to use in their party compositions. To access the Rift, you need to locate Rift Stones, which are scattered throughout the land. Once inside, you can assess other pawns which have been uploaded either by physically checking the entities in front of you or by using the nicely baked in browse function to fine-tune what you're searching for. My advice here would be to look for pawns with curative skills in the first instance and try find the Mage Setup I mentioned above. You could take this a step further by visiting the Dragon's Dogma fandom page and checking out the various spells and skills associated with each vocation and weapon type, and sculpt your party based on the informed choices that you make from there. Make sure that you upgrade your pawn's gear alongside yours. If you neglect this, you will find that you spend more time picking up your party members and less time smashing your enemies. Subsequently, this means a lower net damage output, and you will also find yourself burning through curatives much more quickly than desired, which becomes a drain on your cash flow. Pawns can also be used as mules and can also be used to do your biddings for you. Offload heavy items onto them when you're out in the wilderness to take the strain off your encumbrance. Equip them with lanterns to make darkened areas lighter, and make sure you equip them with a pickaxe so they also mine nodes throughout the world. You can thank me later for that one. This really does free up some time. When you come across notice boards, pick up all the quests on there apart from Escourt quests in the first instance. We'll talk about those in a moment. These notice boards offer you quests which you will work through passively as you progress through the game, and act as an excellent means to give you the edge when leveling up your vocation and gaining money. Your quest log has no limit in terms of space, so you're absolutely fine to grab as many of these as you can from NPCs and notice boards. Failing to do this will prevent you from gaining valuable experience, items, and equipment offered by quests. In terms of the Escort quests, these can be extremely challenging and, to be honest, very monotonous. They're certainly not one of the best aspects of the game. However, they are worth completing as they can reward useful weapon unlocks, and other quests require some of these to be completed as a prerequisite. There's a cheeky strategy that you can use to make these styles of quests much less painful to complete. Keep on watching, and once we get round to tips around travel, all will be revealed. So Maximilion in Grand Soren provides you with the main story missions, and once you open up the main quest line fully, choose to decipher a text as one of your main quest options to obtain an extra Portcrystal early. This is a useful item that makes world traversal much easier to do, especially with the Eternal Ferry Stone, which you will have acquired via purchasing Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen. Get a message telling you failed a quest? Don't worry, none of the quests in the game are permanently missable. With that being said, you can easily progress the story quest too far and inadvertently lock yourself out of certain quest chains. If you're wanting to prevent this, I would recommend researching which specific quests are the ones that will lock you out. Personally though, I would opt for doing your first playthrough in a free manner. Just go with the flow and see where the wind takes you. Due to the game's New Game Plus nature, you will finish the missed quests in subsequent playthroughs to avoid missing out. I also do think, folks, that if you do follow guides for this type of game, game, you actually do cut your playtime with the game slightly shorter because it will give you the most efficient way of doing things. And if that's your style, no problem. But I honestly think this game is best played freely to enjoy everything that can be on offer. Fast travel is facilitated by placing Portcrystals around the overworld. You can place up to 10 Portcrystals around Gran Soren for convenient teleportation. As previously mentioned, the use of the Eternal Ferry Stone makes the use of these Portcrystals an absolute dream to get around the map, and it's important to place them in convenient spots that you will regularly revisit. The cheeky strategy that I mentioned earlier regarding the Escourt quests is another excellent way that you can use these. Set them down at the destinations of the Escourt quests. Just make sure that you put them down to find out where the end of a quest is before you activate it. This will make your time doing these much less. In Gran Soren, be sure to visit the Black Cat shop. This is in the housing district and offers a wide range of options to capitalize on. This sells strong early game weapons, and remember those rusted weapons that I spoke about earlier? Well, this is where you can purchase upgrade materials for these. Perhaps the most important feature to this vendor, though, is the fact that it allows you to create duplicates, or forgeries as they're referred to in the game. This is a mechanic that you can manipulate to your advantage throughout a game. A little bonus tip here is to consider creating forgeries of quest items for subsequent NG+ playthroughs. This will make your life once again much easier. Be sure to manage your own and your pawn's inventory regularly. Each one has their own inventory and will pick up items sporadically throughout your time in the overworld. One really important point to note is that food rots in your inventory, even rare ones, so a great way around this is to store food in your stash to prevent it rotting. If you begin to notice that your party's overall weight is beginning to increase, then a huge tip I would recommend is to head to your stash, which is located at an inn, deposit all the items from all your characters including yourself, and take the opportunity to sort through and craft anything you may need. Almost everything in this game combines together to make something usable, so make sure you don't sleep on this. An absolutely massive quality of life tip, which I wish I knew sooner, is that there is a deposit all function. To do this, while on a category, press backspace, and this will allow you to offload everything within the category. I did not find this out until a second playthrough of this game, and I am cursing the amount of time that I must have lost mindlessly spamming enter. Now remember that bonus tip I mentioned at the start of the video? Well, thank you for holding on and waiting. Here it is. This game truly rewards players who play it how it was intended to be played. Make it an adventure. Strike a balance between exploration and story progression. Take the time to engage with the lore, different quest types, crafting and evolving gameplay. If you're exploring and you find somewhere that's too challenging, no problem. Just go level up, upgrade your equipment, research the enemies, prepare your pawn composition to tackle the challenge. This is what makes Dragon's Dogma an absolute joy to play, and why I've deliberately left out some of the cheesier and more rush-focused strategies in this video. With that in mind, if this has piqued your interest and you want some more advanced beginner tips, which also include some glitches and methods to get a stronger, quicker start, then check out this next video where I'll be covering some more in-depth tips and a few cheeky glitches that you can use to get a head start on your playthrough. Until then, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.